Welcome to today's Muskogee Municipal Authority, February the 12th, 2018. Roll call, please.
Mayor Bob Coburn.
Here.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Here.
Dan Hall.
Here.
Marlon Coleman. Janie Boydston. Wayne Johnson.
Here.
Patrick Cale.
Here.
Ivory Van.
Here.
Derek Reed.
Here.
We are accounted for. Regular agenda item number 1.
Consider approval of MMA minutes of January 8th, 2018.
We'll now consider those minutes. Is there additional correction to the minutes?
Move for approval. Second.
A motion and a second. Any comments? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Patrick Cale.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes. Motion carries. Item number 2.
Consider approval of MMA claims for the month ending January 31st, 2018.
Mr. Miller.
Yes, we have before you the list of claims, including the amount that we're retaining for capital projects. We do recommend approval.
Move for approval. Second.
We got a motion and a second. Is there any comments? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Patrick Cale.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes, motion carries. That concludes our agenda for Muskogee Municipal Authority. We'll now go to our Muskogee City Council, February 12th, 2018. Please join us for an invocation and followed by a flag salute. Bow with us as we pray. Father, we come to you tonight to just ask your guidance, your protection over our city, that you would guide and protect our meeting as well, that you would be the priority for our meeting, for our emphasis in our life. Bless this city. Show us your favor. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Join us for the flag salute. Attention, salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we do the roll call, we have a scout troop with us. Mr. Chastain, what is the scout troop number again? 806? 608. 608. Right number, wrong order. Welcome. We enjoy having you tonight. Roll call, please.
Mayor Bob Coburn.
Here.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Here.
Dan Hall.
Here.
Marlon Coleman. Janie Boydston. Wayne Johnson.
Here.
Patrick Cale.
Here.
Ivory Van.
Here.
Derek Reed.
Here.
Move that we excuse Councilman Coleman and Boydston.
Second that.
Coleman's understandable, but Boydston, why would we excuse her on pre-Valentine here? For work reasons. You made that motion?
Yes,
Did
sir.
we have a second?
Yes.
Okay. Motion and a second. Any comments? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Patrick Cale.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes. Motion carries. We'll now consider the special call City Council January 16 minutes and the regular session January 22nd minutes. Are there addition or corrections to either of those two sets of minutes?
Move for approval.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any comments? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Patrick Cale.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes. Motion carries. Consent agenda, items 1 through 6. Is there anything anyone would like to move to the regular agenda?
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Items 1 through 6 on the consent agenda. Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Patrick Cale.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes, motion carries. Regular agenda item number 7.
Hold a public hearing and take action on the approval of ordinance number 4038A, rezoning the property located at 2312 Augusta Street, more particularly described in the ordinance from C1 Local Commercial District to R1 Single Family Residential, and if approved, authorize staff to revise the official zoning map of the city to reflect said change or take other necessary action.
Mr. Garvin, and we will consider ourselves in a public hearing.
Mayor, members of the council, the applicants Kenneth and Levita Gold is requesting approval to rezone property from the C1 Local Commercial District to the R1 Single Family Residential District. Property is located at 2312 Augusta Street. The reason for the rezoning is to allow the property to be developed residentially. They are proposing a couple of new single-family dwellings on the property. Looking at the existing zoning land use, starting with the site. Currently, the site is zoned C1 local commercial and is vacant property. To the north is zoned R1 single family. There's a couple of single family dwellings. To the south, which is across Augusta Street, is zoned C1 local commercial, and there's an apartment complex. To the east is zoned C1 local commercial and a convenience store. And to the west is zoned R1 single family and a single family dwelling. Now, if you look at the land use map, it does indicate single family residential within this area. Therefore, this request complies with the land use map and comprehensive plan adopted by the City of Muskogee. This item's been recommended for approval by staff, Planning Commission, and Public Works Committee. Be glad to answer any questions.
No one has signed up to speak to this item, so we will close the public hearing. Does council have question or comment for Mr. Garvin?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, may I recognize?
Yes, you can.
Yeah, Mr. Garvin, did they get a chance to go by and clean that ditch? I didn't get a chance to go by there and check.
It's been taken care of.
Thank you. Turn the floor back over to you, Mr. Mayor.
Other comments, questions?
Move for approval.
Got a motion?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any questions? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Patrick Kell.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Band.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes, motion carries. Item number 8.
Hold a public hearing and take action on the approval of ordinance number 4039A, rezoning the property located on North Country Club Road between Chandler Road and Gibson Street, more particularly described in the ordinance from A, Agriculture District to C1, Local Commercial District, and if approved, authorize staff to revise the official zoning map of the city to reflect said change or take other necessary action.
Mr. Garvin, and again, we'll be in a public hearing.
Mayor, members of the council, the applicants, David and Sue Vanderford, is requesting approval to rezone property from the A Agricultural District to the C1 Local Commercial District. The property is located on the east side of Country Club Road between Chandler and Gibson Street. The reason for the rezoning is to allow a banquet facility to be located on the property. Again, looking at the zoning, currently the property is zoned A Agricultural and is undeveloped. North of the site is zoned A Agricultural and is undeveloped property. South of the site is zoned A Agricultural and is pasture, undeveloped property. To the east is zoned A Agricultural and is undeveloped. And to the west, which is between the site and Country Club, is zoned A Agricultural and undeveloped property. On this one, if you look at the land use map, it shows it as a transitional zone. If you look at the land use map, you can see the purple, which is the industrial classification. There's kind of a gold area, which is the transitional area. And then on the other side of Country Club is the residential single family. The C1 is considered a transitional zone between industrial and residential. It is the most restrictive commercial zoning we have. Therefore, this request to rezone to C1 complies with the land use map and comprehensive plan. This item's also been recommended for approval by staff, Planning Commission, and Public Works Committee. Again, be glad to answer any questions.
Okay, again, nobody signed up to speak to this item, so we will close the public hearing. Council have comment or question for Mr. Garvin?
I like to move for approval. I think it's a great place to build something out there. It's been not used for since I was a kid. It's going to be bad. That's where I used to sneak around and hunt deer and go fishing in that little pond back there. So it's going to miss that.
I understand there's deer on the side as well as bobcats. Is that true?
It's going to be a good thing for that street.
Got a motion and a second?
I don't have a second yet. Oh, I didn't hear him. I'm sorry. Yes.
Anyone have question or comment? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Patrick Kell.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Band.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes, motion carries. Item number 9.
Hold a public hearing and take action on the approval of ordinance number 4040A, rezoning the property located on North 54th Street, north of Shawnee Avenue, more particularly described in the ordinance from R1 Single Family Residential to RA Agriculture Residential, and if approved, authorize staff to revise the official zoning map of the city to reflect said change or take other necessary action.
Mr. Garvin, again, you're going to get to go 4 times in a row, and again, we'll be in a public hearing for a moment.
The applicant, Don and Casey DeVede, is requesting approval to rezone property from the R1 Single Family Residential District to the RA Residential Agricultural District. The property is located on the east side of 54th Street. It's just north of Shawnee Avenue. The reason for rezoning the property, the applicant plans on building a new single-family dwelling on the property, but they'd also like to have a large barn, a large garden, and possibly a couple of livestock, horses in the future. Now, if you look at the existing zoning land use, starting with the site is currently zoned R1 and is undeveloped property. To the north is also zoned R1 single family dwelling. To the south is zoned R1 single family, undeveloped property. To the east is zoned R1 single family and undeveloped property, and I don't have a picture back there because I couldn't get back to that portion of the property. And west is zoned R1, which is across 54th Street, and it's also undeveloped property. If you look at the land use map, it does show agricultural within this area. The residential agricultural is considered an agricultural zone, therefore it complies with the land use map adopted by the city of Muskogee. This item's been recommended for approval by staff, Planning Commission, and Public Works. I'm glad to answer any questions.
We will now close the public hearing. No one has signed up to speak to this item. Does council have question or comment?
What?
Move for approval. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. I'll let you do this one.
Okay, thanks.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions?
Just make sure he doesn't put gators out there. You know where he's from.
Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Patrick Hale.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Vance.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes. Motion carries. Item number 10, please.
Hold a public hearing and take action on the approval of ordinance number 4041A, rezoning the property located on South Cherokee Street, south of Cherokee Drive, more particularly described in the ordinance from C1 Local Commercial District to I1 Light Industrial District, and if approved, authorize staff to revise the official zoning map of the city to reflect said change or take other necessary action.
Mr. Garvin, and again, we'll be in a public hearing.
The applicants, Philip and Penny Coppin, is requesting approval to rezone property from the C1 Local Commercial District to the I1 Light Industrial District. Property is located on the west side of Cherokee Street, just south of Cherokee Drive. The reason for rezoning the property is to allow a rental storage business to be located on the property. There is some existing storage buildings currently on the property. Again, looking at the existing zoning land use within the area, starting with the site. The site is currently zoned C1 Local Commercial. And there's a picture of the storage buildings. To the north is zone C1 Local Commercial and is undeveloped. To the south is zone C1 and there's a single-family dwelling. To the east, which is across Cherokee Street, is zone C1, single-family dwellings. And to the west, which is back to the rear of the site, is zone C1 and is undeveloped property. Now again, looking at the land use map, as you can see, it is a purple colored area, which is identifies as industrial within this area. The I-1 is light industrial zoning, therefore it complies with the land use map and comprehensive plan that the City of Muskogee adopted. This item was recommended for approval by staff and Planning Commission. Public Works moved it forward without a recommendation. Be glad to answer any questions.
We have 2 people that have signed up to speak to this item. Bill Justice, would you like to speak to this item? If you would approach the microphone there, please, sir. Bill, give us your name and your address, please.
My name is Bill Justice, Justice. I live at 2810 South Cherokee Street.
And you have 5 minutes, sir.
Okay. I don't know the man that bought that property to build more storage units on it. my thing is, I've lived out there in that place for something over 60 years, like 65, 66 years. And I've seen that neighborhood degenerate since we've been in the city limits. I don't know that some of that even went through the zoning commission to be what happened to it. But anyway, the neighborhood has gone downhill considerably. And I would suggest, if you people would like to see a storage unit built in front of your house that you would look at every morning when you walked out your front door, then vote yes on this. If you feel like I do, that you would like to see maybe a house built in that location and upgrade the place, and where we try to keep ours presentable, at least while it looks like someone lives there. And we try to take care of things, keep the lawn mowed and the trash picked up. If people throw in the bar ditches, they drive down the road, such as that. So, really and truly, we try to take care of our place. I watched that storage unit, that existing storage unit. When the people moved out of the house, it was actually attached to the storage, not attached to it, but on the same lot as the storage unit. When they moved out of that, they was totally destroyed, the overhead doors, and ransacked what was left in that building. And actually went through the house on the property to the south of the storage building and pretty well wrecked that house out. And the young man that moved in there to make a house for his wife and children spent a great deal of time and a great deal of money rebuilding that thing, and not knowing, and this is his fault, not knowing that that storage unit was not attached to his property. The electric that supplies the storage building comes out of his house. But I would suggest to you, people, that I'll say again, if you wouldn't mind having a storage building in front of your house that you would get to look at every day or so forth, then I would encourage you to vote yes. But if you're like I am, you'd like to see something a little more pleasant than that across the road from your house, then I would encourage you to vote no. But the church that's across the street from that property is in the midst of being remodeled. The man has done a fantastic job of rebuilding that church. I mean, it's something to be proud of. And I'm sure he is proud of what they've done there. But he spent a great deal of money on remodeling that church, rebuilding that church. His congregation's growing, and I say power to him. But I think probably he's as opposed to this project as I am. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Gary Martin, if you would give us your name and your address, sir, and you'll have 5 minutes.
Gary Martin, 2802 South Cherokee Street, Sanctuary Apostolic Church. Can I request an additional couple of minutes?
Why don't we go ahead and start, and let's see if you know where
Okay.
we are time-wise.
I gave each one of the council members a copy of what I'm about to read, and also pictures of the current facility that is there. First, I would like to question the alternative motive for rezoning from C1 to I1, or light industrial. Current estimates are upward of $60,000 to restore the current building and to bring it into city codes. This would include the price to pour a new concrete driveway or blacktop the driveway. And this is based on what it costs me for about the same thing if I was to blacktop the front of my church. Why would anyone purchase a facility for an investment knowing that it would take years to recoup your money? I don't know, but I can guess that there has to be an alternative motive behind this. Maybe that later he wants to zone the other lot there industrial and build a large shop there. I was told by the experts that the rezoning of property to industrial will adversely affect the property values of the facilities around it. And I have a copy of the city ordinance, line 3, page 27. I believe it's section 82-158, or no, that's easements, I'm sorry. But it talks about impact on other property. It says the planned development shall not be injurious to the use or enjoyment of other property in the neighborhood for the purposes permitted in the district, shall not impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of surrounding properties for uses permitted in the zoning district, shall not be inconsistent with the community character of the neighborhood, shall not alter the essential character of the neighborhood, and shall be consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies set forth in the comprehensive plan, and shall not substantially diminish or impair property values within the neighborhood or be incompatible with other property in the immediate vicinity. And this would exactly do that. It would adversely affect all of the property values there, of the property that is around that. Also, the easements and rights states that the easements must be a minimum of 20 feet from the line drawn in the center of the driveway of this property. It's 17 feet to the front of the building, which does not allow it to fall outside the 20-foot easement that the city council or that the ordinances require. And to use a storage facility or to use this as a storage facility would create a substantial safety hazard for the community as well. South Cherokee Street is a commercial truck route. Heavy industrial trucks constantly speed through the area at a high rate of speed, and someone turning into a facility such as this with a trailer could potentially cause a fatality. Number one, I wouldn't want my children out there with something like that going on, because the trucks would not be able to stop in time not to cause an accident. I've already talked about number three, about it adversely affecting the property values. If this was your neighborhood, would you want to see it done this way, the way it's being done now? I don't believe you would. I don't believe you'd want your property values to decrease either. You can see in the pictures the inside of the structure is open. It has never been used as a commercial storage facility. It is a garage according to city standards and has been used as such. Plywood has been used to try to strengthen the joist over such a large span of area inside. There's only 7 doors that might potentially be used as a little storage facility. 2 on the east side, 4 on the west side, and they're only approximately 8 by 10, maybe 8 by 12. Other unsafe issues has already been stated, that the electrical runs underground from the house next door to supply this facility. We all know that the ground is a conductor of electricity, and if it was not properly grounded or put into conduit, that is a potential safety hazard that we are looking at there. The panel box you have a picture of is outdated and is currently has a fuse panel to supply the electrical service to it. Romex wire is stretched throughout the building and hanging down is not properly secured, and there is currently no conduit in use in the facility. The property has not been properly maintained and is in need of major repair. The absolute cost to turn this facility into a commercial storage facility and to be able to turn a profit would be highly exorbitant. The pictures that Mr. Garvin has showed, the ones last week, was not properly depicting the outside of the building. The one tonight did, because I took pictures, and you see the dates on there. They're dated February the 6th.
Mr. Martin, we have come to the 5-minute time period. Do we want to go ahead and extend a couple of additional minutes to go through this last page with items 7 and 8?
Mayor, I would like to make a motion to extend this time 2 minutes.
Good.
I'll second it.
Motion and a second. Any question or comment? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes, motion carries. Go ahead.
Okay, I have talked to the neighbors in the immediate vicinity. Everyone that I have talked to is directly opposed to this being rezoned as industrial. I would say that we are the voters of the city, and we are the ones who put you guys in office based on promises that are made to hear our voices when during your campaign. And we feel that you should hear our voices very loudly on this matter, because there's nothing else in the area that is zoned industrial. Everything is either residential or commercial. If anything needs to be happening to this, it needs to be reduced to R1 instead of going on up to I1 or light industrial. One last thing, the Chronicle tells a story about a couple who used a storage facility such as this to manufacture and distribute drugs to the children in the neighborhood. Tony Carter, 28, and Chanel Grantham, 29, were arrested and charged with manufacture and distribution of a controlled substance. Particularly, they were charged with heroin trafficking, possession of heroin, and possession of MDMA, also known as ecstasy, possession of criminal tools, and drug paraphernalia. The couple was arrested in the storage facility after law enforcement obtained a search warrant to search the storage facility unit that the couple had rented. Law enforcement found money, drug scales, cell phones, packaging materials, so that the drugs could be manufactured, packaged, and distributed from the storage unit itself. The story can be found in the Chronicle Telegram, November 21, 2017. Do I believe that these folks are going to do that? Absolutely not. But when you rent a facility, you have no control over what they put in there or what they do with that. And therefore, we are directly opposed to the rezoning of this to industrial, because it would inhibit the values of our properties. It would create an unsafe area in our city that could potentially cause fatalities, and because of the possibility of drug activity and stuff that's not going on there now, more of it to be going on in our area. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. That is everybody that signed up to speak to this item, so we will close the public hearing. Does council have questions or comments for Mr. Garvin?
Mr. Garvin, who owns the house just south of this piece of property? Is it the applicants?
No. The house was bought by a separate person, and I can tell you their name here in just a second. When they bought it, they did not have the property surveyed, and I guess they did not realize that the storage facility and most of their backyard did not come with the house. They just bought it from HUD. It's my understanding when the previous owners got a divorce, HUD ended up with the house and a bank ended up with the remaining portion of the property. Glenn Madison, I believe, is the owner of the house.
So does the power really come out of that house or just off of?
It is, and that was discussed in Planning Commission. Before this could be used as a mini storage, he will have to take out a building permit. He is aware that he's got to make repairs. He is aware he's got to do hard surface, which that's what he does for a living, is the concrete and asphalt work. He's also aware he's got to put a site-proof fence between the house and the storage facility.
And the 17-foot easement? What is that?
I'm not sure what he's talking about there. There's an access easement on the applicant's deed that gives the homeowner next door access through the property. If he's referring to that, it's 10 foot from the either side the way I understood, and it's an access easement. It's not a city easement.
Okay.
Gary, could you pull up the site map again, please?
That one?
Yeah, that's showing the back side of the property.
Oh. Yeah, that's showing the back side.
Now, what addition could be put on that storage facility?
Really, it's not big enough to ever expand. He might be able to go a little ways to the west, which is to the left of your screen. A short distance, but that would be
There couldn't be any additions. I mean, that property in the rear of the house isn't large enough to do any additions onto that storage facility.
No.
That in front isn't large enough to do any additions. Mm-hmm. Might could do a bay or two in the rear.
Yeah, a bay or two to the west towards the rear of the property, maybe. You could probably get a couple there, but that would be about it.
What appears to be a structure there in the back of the property in the, this would be northwest corner. Is that a little outbuilding of some kind?
I think that's just another outbuilding. Let me see if I can see it. You can barely see it in that picture.
Oh, okay, brown colored building.
Yeah, it kind of matches.
Okay.
Pictures of those buildings on my phone. Let's see. They're right here. This is the outbuildings.
Okay.
Mr. Garvin, behind the house. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Just that outbuilding appears to be kind of just a covered shed or something.
Yeah, and it's in bad shape, and I'm not sure whether he's going to try to repair it or demolish it. I don't know.
Okay.
With the size of the yard and the backside, would this guy be able to use that open spot for like campers and boat storage? Is it that wide? How wide is that space?
It's wide enough that you might be able to, you'd have to back something in there, and you wouldn't have enough room to turn around.
So it's not very wide.
It's basically just part of the property. He's just attaching to it because that's what he has. And if you don't rezone it, it's just gonna sit there anyway. Like I say, actually, it's the property owner's next door. It's actually his backyard. I think the property owner's fence goes about to where the west white line is. Again, when he bought the house from HUD, he failed to get a survey and did not realize it. Oops. Is what I'm understanding.
How far could you go to the west to that back property line? You get 10 or 15 feet to that back property line with building, if you wanted to expand?
That'd be considered a rear yard, so you'd have to be at least 20 feet off the rear yard to meet the setback requirements.
Okay.
I'd say at the very most, he might be able, if he wanted to, he might be able to do 2, maybe 3 more bays. Would be about the most he could ever do.
Kind of half again the building that's there. Maybe half of the building is there again.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So what could he do under the current rating of this building right now?
Currently, it's zone C1. He could open some type of commercial remodel and open a commercial business in it.
Garage, anything like that?
Yeah. Yeah, there are several different commercial businesses he could have in there.
Can you go to the land use map?
Yes.
Now we're showing that as to be industrial. Do you know why it was to be zoned industrial?
Yes, when we looked at the land use map a couple years ago, which we went through the entire city and looked at different zoning classifications, what would be appropriate. With that area, it's going a lot towards the industrial, car lots, car repairs. You've got railroad tracks on one side, you've got highway on one side. Felt like it was just an appropriate location to expand industrial from Dow Tile and from across from Dow Tile, which is also laid out for industrial, with the railroad tracks and the highway. But you got Peak, 69, railroad tracks, all the way going to the fairgrounds.
So
But you already have some industrial zoning, both to the north and to the south of this side that's existing.
So you took into account the existing housing that was there at that time?
Yes.
And then looked into the future and seeing how our community was moving toward the future and saying probably into the future that was going to be more going from a C1 to an industrial move toward the future.
Correct.
Okay.
And
Thank
we
you.
try to update the land use map every 5 to 10 years because things change.
Yes.
So you have to keep looking at it. And we felt that was an appropriate location.
Thank you. So that was more of a projection when we were doing the land use map, of projecting it to be industrial based on what's around it.
Yes.
Thank you.
And we did have an industrial zoning just within the last year, just to the south of this property.
And originally, this mini storage qualified for zoning in the C2?
Used to, when we updated our zoning regulations 3 years ago, almost 4 years now, mini storage or storage facilities was allowed in the commercial zoning. It was moved to the industrial classification, and one reason was because of the metal. That was one of the big reasons.
No brick around the outside?
Because mini storages or storage building typically are metal. The only place you can really have metal on the exterior walls is your industrial classification.
So this, at one point, qualified as a mini storage, was approved in the whole bit, and would have everything would have been rosy, except that, explain again how it missed
Yes,
this 3-month window deal or
it was-
whatever?
Yeah, it was currently falling under what we call a non-conforming use.
Okay.
Means an existing building that does not necessarily meet the zoning regulations, but it's been there, so it can
Grandfathered,
continue.
if you will.
Grandfathered in. However, if that non-conforming use is ever vacant for a period of 90 days or longer, you lose that non-conforming use. When the gentleman got the divorce, that went back to the bank, I think it's been several years since that point, so it's at there vacant, therefore any non-conforming use was lost at that time.
Now, did I understand right, Gary, though? This is still not a residential piece. I mean, this gentleman right now could put in a garage and start
It's zone
working on
commercial,
vehicles.
so anything that's allowed in the C1 local commercial district, he could put in there now. Most of this property through here is zone commercial now, not residential. There's
Other
probably more
questions or
commercial
comments?
zoning than residential zoning, actually. within
Do what?
this. There's more commercial zoning than residential within
In this area?
Yes.
Have,
The neighborhood's going downhill because it has been allowed to be zone commercial.
Do we have other comments or questions?
the last couple of years, have we issued in that area any industrial permits for new structures?
The only thing in the last, I'll say, 2 years, we had a person who rezoned it industrial, and it was for, at that point, a wrecker service that went in. There is some non-conforming uses on to the farther south, too, that are non-conforming, and unless, again, they discontinue, they can continue their operations.
Okay,
So,
so the only one here recently is a wrecker service?
correct, correct.
Thank you.
Entertain a motion.
I'll move for approval.
And a motion? Is there a second? We'll send it back to staff and let them do something further, or what do we choose to do with this item?
I don't know that there's much more we can do. Would we just as well to vote it down now or leave it in limbo, or?
If that's directed to me, Councilor Kale, what if the zoning is rejected, then staff will need to be directed to go back and modify the land use map. Otherwise, we'll be acting in an arbitrary and capricious manner by not following our land use map. Each city in Oklahoma is required to have a comprehensive plan with the land use map, which establishes how your zoning is going to progress over the period of years that Gary has already explained. So if we deviate from that, then we need to modify the land use map to reflect our deviation. I mean, it's a working document.
So a question is, if it's the will of this council to not allow it to go this, to not allow this to go through, one might make a motion and one might second it and then take a vote, and the matter's clear.
I'd make a recommendation, we review our land use map for this section, and make sure that it's, meeting the guidelines of the current residents in that area of our community right now, taking into account our current residents in the community right now.
So you're advising staff to do that?
Yes. That would be my motion, that we ask our staff to look at the current land use map, that it did not take into account our current residents in that area right now.
Okay.
Does that include a denial of this request now, or?
Yes.
Okay. So it would be, so your motion would be to deny.
My motion is
and-
to deny the current use, and for direct staff to look at the current industrial use.
I'll second all that.
Okay. Given that, Mr. Tucker, clarify for us, a yes would be yes to deny.
The yes vote would be to deny the request for rezoning and direct staff to bring back a study on the need to revise the land use map in that area.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Is there other comments?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, may I be recognized?
Yes, sir.
I went out there and looked at this situation also, and this building here is an eyesore for that community, because on down to the north of this building, there's another church on the other side, and the people on that side, on the west side, they have nice homes. But and like what the gentleman is that just got through talking, he has a nice home. He keeps his place up. In the church, I'm very impressed with it. I first met him when I went out there on a water leak, and they keep that church just as neat and manicured. But this right here is just an eyesore to this total community right here. You know, so I just, you know, I know people. Some of the councilmen said they were going out and look at it firsthand, so I did, and that's just what that's what I see about the community. Okay. So I'll turn the floor back over to you, Mr. Mayor.
Well, and that's why I wanted to look at it. The building is in pretty bad shape, but it can be brought up to standards, and it can be used for a rental facility. But I don't think our current review of our site is taking into account some of the homes that are inside that area. And I think it will move toward the future at industrial, but we're not taking into account some of the residents that are inside that area right now. And it could develop more into residential in the future, and that's why I think the planning department just needs to really look at that. Could it go more residential along that road, or is it going to go industrial? I would just like to have it reviewed.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second.
Yeah, could I just want to go on record explaining that I sympathize with the citizens that live around the storage there, and they've all made some very worthy points. I'm going to make my vote tonight based upon our current zonings and other factors, and support the Public Works and staff's position on this. Just want everybody to know it's based on how it's zoned and what our long-term plans are. And if we go back and take another look at that, that changes things. But as of today, those things are not changed, and I just want to let everybody know the position I'm taking.
All right, we've got a motion and a second, and we've had thorough discussion. Mr. Tucker, again, if we vote yes, we're voting yes on the motion to deny. Okay, and
With direction to staff to review the land use map in that area and to bring forth a plan to have it conform with what our action is today.
okay, roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Patrick Kell.
No.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Vance.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes, motion carries. Item number 11.
Approved to authorize submission of letters of intent to the City of Muskogee Foundation for the upcoming grant cycle for city projects as follows. Depot District Development, $800,000. Parks and Recreation Maintenance Fund, $100,000. Hatbox Hangar Renovations, Phase 2, $400,000. Hatbox Livestock Show Arena, $750,000. Mobile Stage, $150,000. City County Street Projects, $375,000. Juvenile Adult Community Service, $137,565. Community Intervention Center, $152,777. Housing Rehab Neighborhood Revitalization, $300,000. Restoration and Beautification, $150,000. Demolition Program, $200,000.
Mr. Miller.
Yes, Mayor and members of council, this has been taken off the consent agenda because we made a change. We wanted to point that change out to you. These are the same grants that we approved in committee, but we have had some good news, which is that the county has agreed to partner with us on the Juvenile Adult Community Service Program, thanks to the efforts of Mr. Tucker. And so we're increasing the request amount so that we're able to incorporate additional community service. Mr. Tucker certainly can be available to answer any questions, but otherwise we recommend approval.
A question or comment from Mr. Tucker?
Move for approval.
A motion and a second. Any comments? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Patrick Kell.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes, motion carries. Item number 12.
Discuss and consider approval of City Council support for submission of a letter of intent to the City of Muskogee Foundation to be submitted by the Muskogee Media Institute for the upcoming grant cycle or take other necessary action.
Mr. Miller.
Yes, Mayor, members of council, this is similar to what you did approve on the consent agenda, which is a letter of support for a nonprofit that's submitting a grant. Basically, the Muskogee Media Institute is a group that's going to utilize local resources and partner with the high school to provide media content and training. So their partnership with the city will help provide some content and help us have resources to tell a positive story. They're going to work with the city staff and identify programs or activities that the public needs to know more about. There's no commitment from the city financially in this area, just staff support. And so we would like to request that we submit a letter of support for this grant request.
Move for approval.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any comments? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Patrick Kell.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes, motion carries. Item number 13.
Discuss and consider approval of the appointment of Tony Bradley Smith as first alternate municipal judge and juvenile judge to serve a full 2-year term effective July 1, 2017 through January 31, 2020, unless sooner removed for cause pursuant to sections 34-89 of the Muskogee City Code or take other necessary action.
Mr. Tucker, I'm going to allow you to give whatever explanation is needed, if any,
Sure.
on this, as well as number 14, too, if you would,
Okay.
please.
As you all know, the city of Muskogee has a full-time municipal judge, let me start again. We have a municipal judge who is in charge of the court. Additionally, we have 2 other alternate judges. So those alternate judges will perform the duties of judge if Mr. Smith is not available or has some level of conflict of another kind. Additionally, with Ms. Bradley Smith, she is taking over the position as juvenile judge, which, as you all may remember, was a position vacated when Judge Brett Smith was promoted to the position of municipal judge. Why we're asking this to be effective beginning July 1 is because Ms. Bradley Smith took over the position at that time, and the pay scale for juvenile judge is different than your typical alternate position. On the alternate position in adult court, which is also known as traffic court, there is a fee for per day charges because the hearing dates are usually 30 minutes to an hour and no more. Well, the fee for serving as juvenile judge is a per hour rate, and that's because juvenile court sometimes lasts 3 to 5 hours depending on the size of the docket. And so as a result, we made the compensation to be more fair in that regard. And so that's the reason why this is backdated until July 1st, 2017. But all of the judges serve 2-year terms and must be reappointed. And the existing term expired January 31st of this year. So happy to answer any other questions, but the rate has not changed for this contract on the first alternative per court hearing date. Rate has not changed, nor has the hourly rate for her service as juvenile judge from that which was previously enacted in prior years. Happy to answer any questions.
Question or comment?
Move for approval.
Second.
And a motion and a second. Any comments? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Patrick Kell.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes, motion carries. Item number 14.
Discuss and consider approval of the reappointment of Drew Wilcoxon as second alternate municipal judge to serve a full 2-year term beginning February 1st, 2018, and ending January 31st, 2020, unless sooner removed for cause pursuant to Sections 34-89 of the Muskogee City Code, or take other necessary action.
Some of these are kind of tongue twisters to read.
Yes.
Mr. Tucker again.
Yes, Mayor, members of the council, this is simply a renewal for the reappointment of Drew Wilcoxon. There's no aspect of his contract that has changed, even though we've moved Tony Bradley Smith from third alternate to first alternate. Drew Wilcoxon has continued to serve as the second alternate. So the only changes in this contract would be updating the term of service to the 2018-2020 timeframe. Happy to answer any questions.
Question or comment?
Move for approval.
A
Second.
motion and a second. Any questions? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Patrick Hale.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes, motion carries. Item number 15.
Consider approval of an amended interlocal agreement between the city and the Board of County Commissioners for Muskogee County for the hangar renovation project at the Love Hatbox Sports Complex, or take other necessary action.
Mr. Tucker again.
Mayor, members of the council, you may remember that last week this was brought before you for approval, and it did receive unanimous approval. Of course, this would be an interlocal agreement between the city and the county, with the county providing in-kind services and use of equipment for that hangar renovation project. As I mentioned at that time, all interlocal agreements must be approved by the Attorney General. We sent this off to the Attorney General, and we received a letter back from one of his assistants telling us that there was one modification to the agreement that he required prior to approval, and that was within page 2, paragraph 2, of the existing agreement, which needed to make a reference to a joint board who would facilitate the agreement. Within the original that was presented, the terminology related to staff to coordinate the day-to-day needs of the project and for those staff to be able to liaison with each governmental entity. The Attorney General's office thought that the language needed to be more specific in relationship to the requirement of the Interlocal Act, which now will read that the city and county agree to appoint necessary and qualified staff to coordinate the day-to-day needs of the project, which that language is not changed. Here's the change: with the appropriate level of authority to fully administer the agreement in accordance with the statute. So once I received that letter back, I made the modification, and since I did, in fact, have a contact. Once I received that letter, I emailed the Assistant Attorney General with my proposed language change. He approved it. And so once this body approves it, the Board of County Commissioners have a special call for Wednesday to approve their end, and then we will get this executed for approval by the Attorney General's office. But since they have reviewed this once with only that minor change, I don't anticipate any issues with that whatsoever. So with that, I'm happy to answer other questions, but I recommend approval.
So moved.
A motion and a second. Any comments? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Patrick Hale.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes, motion carries. Item number 16.
Consider approval of a reimbursement contract between Department of Environmental Quality and the City of Muskogee for a program called the Elysium Project.
Chief Eskridge.
Mayor, Council, I am going to let Community Resource Officer Gardner tell you about this. This is a reimbursement plan from Department of Environmental Quality, and he's been responsible for developing the Elysium project as well as its very erudite name. So I will let
All right. Good evening. And last time, you may remember, I got up here and spoke to you a little bit about how the project was going to work. Passing out some paperwork right now to give you kind of a recap as far as what the program is and how it works and how we're going to try to fund it. Last spring and summer, I would say we had some really good successes with it in the Reeves edition. Just go ask the neighbors up there. They'll tell you they like what we do. And it's free. It didn't really cost us anything. We did most of the work during the mayor's cleanup, so most of those costs were covered, fortunately. This year, I think that we can expand the program and move to other areas of the city as long as we can seek state funding through the Department of Environmental Quality. And what you have before you is how that's going to work. Basically, it's a reimbursement program. And while the city does foot the original bill, they do reimburse it. It's going to be up to $42,000 worth of labor, dump fees, and equipment. If we'll get through here and look real quick, there is no deadline for this, but they want us to do it obviously as soon as possible. The purpose of this is funding of the Elysium project would allow for more work to be done in blighted areas of town that are in need of cleanup. This funding would also allow for the purchase of equipment to use for litter removal and landscaping. Now, the process, to be specific, DEQ has agreed to enter into a contract with the City of Muskogee for the purchase of equipment, the payment of salary, and the disposal of waste up to $42,000. The city would make the initial purchase, disbursements, and then documentation would be turned into DEQ on a monthly basis. Let's say we're taking a truckload of mattresses, TVs, whatever, trash bags to the landfill. We would fund that initially, whatever that cost may be to dump. At the end of the month, I keep spreadsheets, and I turn this in, and DEQ writes the city back a check for that amount. So in the long run, it doesn't cost the city anything. And this contract is also for 1 year, but it can be renewed and renegotiated. And as far as I know, we are the only municipality engaged in this program. Most of this is for county law enforcement agencies. We're the only city involved. If you want to break it down as far as exactly what all costs are entailed, turn through here. Let's see here. Labor, my labor can be factored into it, whether it's just regular time, hours worked, or if it's overtime, let's say on the weekend. We work 4 or 5 days a week during the mayor's cleanup, so we're pretty busy. That can be reimbursed for up to $16,639. That's a big chunk of my salary. The total cost of the program, like I said, is $42,000. $10,940 of this is for equipment, $16,639 for labor wages, and $14,421 for disposal fees. So as we know, taking stuff to the landfill is not cheap, but that will go a long way. And hopefully we can all get together and find a way to make this work. The state's ready and willing to work with us. We just need City Council approval.
Sir, looking at item number 4B, your list of equipment to purchase.
Correct.
Would all that be purchased locally?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, one other question. What do we need $2,000 chainsaws for?
That would be $1,000 a piece, and they're good, high-quality industrial grade chainsaws. I've had some cheap chainsaws in the past, and they didn't last too long.
Okay, I've had a chainsaw or two, and they were a whole lot less money than that. Pretty good
Well, this
quality.
is just a format for,
I understand that. And then what do you do with the zero-turn mower once this project is completed?
it will be stored when not in use. Basically, the reason for this equipment is a lot of the stuff, say large mountains of trash, mattresses, TVs, tires, and stuff, they're in these neighborhoods that are, back in the Reeves edition, for one example, you can't get to this stuff until you basically deforest the area in front of it to get to it. So there's just mountains of stuff back there.
Yeah, I agree, and you all did an excellent job last year, and I am greatly appreciative for that. I know the community is as well.
And we just like to keep spreading the love. Let's move it around town and do good for some other folks, too.
All right. Questions or comments?
Move for approval.
Second. Any question or comment before we vote?
Outstanding program. I mean, when you're seeing another $42,000 come into our funding, thank you so much for your work and efforts.
Glad to be here.
And I'll tell you what, he's working as hard as anyone that's out there, I guarantee you, and maybe harder. Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Patrick Cale.
Yes?
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Band.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
could I interrupt and make a clarification?
You can.
Earlier, I'd mentioned wanting to be supportive of the position of staff, and I think I said Public Works, and I intended to say Planning and Zoning, staff and Planning and Zoning.
So noted.
I don't think Public Works had a position.
17A.
Thank you.
No dog in that one.
Consider an executive session to discuss and take possible action on the following. A, Pursuant to Section 307B1, Title 25, Oklahoma statutes, consider convening an executive session to discuss the employment and evaluate the performance of Municipal Judge Brett Smith, and if necessary, take appropriate action in open session, including consideration of the reappointment of Judge Smith to serve a 2-year term ending January 31st, 2020.
We would consider a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Motion and a second. Any question or comment? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Patrick Cale.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes, motion carries. We'll now consider ourselves in executive session. If you would please excuse us. Now reconvene from our executive session.
Could come back and go.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Bob Coburn.
Yes, I'm here.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Here?
Dan Hall.
Here.
Marlon Coleman. Janie Boydston. Wayne Johnson.
Here.
Patrick Cale.
Here.
Ivory Van.
Here.
Derek Reed.
Here.
Item 17A, Mr. Tucker.
Thank you, Mayor. Pursuant to Section 307B1, Title 25 Oklahoma statutes, the City Council did convene an executive session to discuss the employment and evaluate the performance of Municipal Judge Brett Smith. After discussing the performance of Mr. Smith and discussing the potential for reappointment, I believe an appropriate motion would be to approve the reappointment of Judge Smith to serve a 2-year term under the terms and conditions of the contract to be executed by the mayor and city clerk as discussed with an executive session.
So moved.
A motion and a second. Any comment or discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Patrick Cale.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes, motion carries. That concludes our meeting for today. Thank you for being a part.